It is May the 24th today, an anniversary of Verve's 1998 gig on the 24th of May. This was their homecoming gig in their hometown of Wigan in the northwest of England. So I'm going to tell you the story, and this is from the Verve Deluxe box set, Urban Hymns box set, which contains about 6 CDs, and it includes a DVD and CD of this gig, Haigh Hall. So Simon Jones, the bass player, it was one of the best days of my life. It was the dream coming true, and to do it at home was a beautiful thing. We used to drive out to Ashurst Beacon in Skelmersdale. It's a beautiful part of Lancashire, all rolling fields, and we used to sit up there and talk about what we were going to achieve. I think that day in Wigan was the real pinnacle in that sense, because it felt like it was everything we talked about being achieved. What more could we want? Pete Salisbury, the drummer, says, "It sold out virtually instantly. We could have put a couple more nights on, and that way we would actually have made a bit of money. Once you've got it set up, then you can make the money. But we wanted to do one special night. I don't know how many people got in, but there were definitely more than there should have been." Richard Ashcroft, frontman. Haigh Hall was one of those places you were always taken to as a child because it's such a beautiful spot. It's quite unusual because it's so close to the town. It's a magical place. We were big fans of the Granada video of the Rolling Stones at Hyde Park, and after that, I was at Spike Island seeing the Stone Roses trying to put that sort of big event on. It becomes beyond the band just doing the music. They're almost once in a lifetime thing. I stood on the stage and looked at the hills around me. I could see Billinge Hospital in the distance where I was born. It was really surreal. It was amazing for the whole area. The town was absolutely buzzing for 2 days. It brings life and culture and music into a place where there hadn't really been anything like that before. Things like Pool's Pies doing the pies backstage. We had Northern Soul DJs on, guys who really knew their stuff. It was this amazing mixture of influences and stuff from the north. It was crazy on the day. Everyone wanted to be there. At one point, loads of lads burst through and all fell into one of the tents backstage. Pete Salisbury, we didn't want to change the dynamic of the band just because it was a bigger show. We'd got there being that live band. There didn't seem any point changing it. We'd worked and worked and worked, and now we were doing this massive show in our hometown. We wanted to showcase what we were all about. I still can't believe we got Beck to play there. It was a really last minute thing. We were like, shit, we've got to play after Beck. We were all big fans of John Martin. It was a pretty eclectic bill, but it reflected our musical tastes. Some images there from the actual gig. Richard Ashcroft says, "To play there was immense, and we were playing really well at that point. We were on fire. When you get a chance to perform at a place like that, I felt it was our duty to go against what you would usually do. You had to be completely honest. There was a tremendous amount of pressure. I was in some terrible hotel in Manchester, pacing around, waiting for the car to take me there. It felt like all those times I watched the Stones in the park, and there's that tension you can feel before they go on, when they're in that caravan. I suddenly had deja vu. I was living it. I was responsible for making it happen. Not solely responsible, obviously, but being the singer, it was my job to bring it together and take it to another place as a performer. So you have all that in the back of your mind, plus all these other strange hometown situations that arise." Simon Jones, the bass player, says, "There was a bit of tension already, and then you've got your old schoolmates who are like, 'You've not talked to me for 5 years. You've changed.' And moaning about who's going backstage and all that. You're dealing with all these really mediocre problems. To them, it's massive, but then you've got to do this really huge show that's going out on BBC TV. Beck supporting, but you're worrying about whether your mate from sixth form has got his backstage pass so he doesn't feel left out. That's a total weird conflict we had to deal with that day. I try not to let that sort of stuff upset me, but I know that it got to Richard and Nick. Simon Tong, the other guitar player. It was quite stressful playing a big hometown gig and having all your family and friends to look after. It felt celebratory, but I don't think it was the greatest gig we ever did in terms of performance. But there were some very good moments. Come On, the encore being one of them. I can remember standing at the side of the stage and watching Beck play. We had Beck supporting us in Wigan. That was a really surreal moment, but it also felt like we had really achieved something. There were all these people turning up at Wigan train station, taking over the pubs in the town centre. There were people from Wigan, obviously, but also from all over England and even Europe or wherever. It was amazing for the town to have that influx of people from outside come to celebrate a local band. Hopefully, it made the town feel very proud. It was our way of saying thank you, paying homage, giving something back. It was very special. Got some more images there, the backstage pass. Really cool to see the newspaper, was it magazine there? Who's that? Some Wigan newspaper. Some fan trying to get in over the wall. Pete Salisbury says, it was the day we told everyone my wife was expecting our son. He's 18 now. That day really sticks in my memory for that reason. I was playing the live CD in the car the other day and I told him, you were there. Nick McCabe, finally, the main guitarist, gets to speak here. Haigh Hall was definitely a milestone for us. It was both a watershed, a celebration, and a bit of a painful realization that this was a construct and that we had better take the reins if we were to steer the band in the right direction and attain any longevity. We didn't, and we didn't. I was hanging out with my brother who lit the spark of my passion for music in the first place. I think I've been awake for 3 days. Everybody was pretty much on the same page. At the end of the gig, despite being worse for wear, I found myself mediating the... Cool, some more massive pictures there. Look at that crowd. Look at that guy. I found myself mediating usual fallouts between folks in general states of alienation, of alteration, and then doing the rounds in a golf buggy with our tour manager, collecting waifs and strays out of car parks and ditches. Wow, so he was like cleaning up after the gig, Nick McCabe. Pete Salisbury, I remember starting This Is Music and thinking, fuck, this is fast. It was the first song, the adrenaline was kicking in. I started it, I set the tempo. Once you've started it like that, you can't slow it down. Simon Tong, Nick's guitar was so heavy and like Hendrix or Funkadelic. I don't think anyone else was doing that. Oasis had the big wall of sound, but they didn't have the intricacy that Nick had, that we had as a band. There were so many different layers. Even though there were a lot of strings on Urban Hymns, we didn't have a string section with us. We tried one rehearsal, but we were just too loud. These poor classical players with their fingers in their ears. It was just going to be impossible. I ended up doing a lot of the strings from samples, triggering them on the keyboards, but it was a heavy sound. Cy Jones, the bass player, we knew our strength was as a live band. We were so much better live than we were on record. When we were touring, we'd listen to the Stooges and think about how quickly they were recording and how simple those records were. There was a spirit with the Stooges. They weren't an amazing technical band, but they were amazing. That's how we felt about ourselves. We're not virtuosos, but we are a fucking good rock and roll band. Let's be a rock and roll band. That was our strength, and thank God we did that, and we didn't have choirs and a string quartet. The crowd went mental. I remember looking out and making sure I took a mental photograph and absorbed the moment. I savoured those moments. I didn't want to forget what I was seeing. Richard Ashcroft says, whatever level you play your hometown at, whether it's a pub or a stadium, it brings another dimension to it. It almost becomes like a wedding or something. It's a bit like Roy Keane used to say about when he joined Man United. He was picking up his mates from Ireland every weekend and taking them to the match. Eventually, it got too much because he was getting so wound up about the guest list, he couldn't concentrate on the match. He was losing concentration on why he was there in the first place. That can easily take over your life, but it was worth it. In some ways, it didn't feel like we were doing it for ourselves. It was done for everyone. All the people in the town, in the region, all the people who'd backed us. And it gives everyone a little strut. It opens up the possibility that you might be able to inspire people to take a different path, be creative, try something. We weren't born into this. We'd done it in a way that hadn't followed some corporate blueprint. We'd made our own path. That's why it ended up being such an intense day. There was so much riding on it. In a bizarre way, other people's futures were riding on it. Spike Island could have been so much better, but it was still monumental because someone like me or Cy Jones or Liam or Noel might have been there. It's what effect it can have beyond the fact that the sound gets blown around in the wind. That's not really the point. It's a cultural event and a catalyst for other things. Nick McCabe. We eventually decamped to a hotel in Manchester, trying to get my head down. I'd allowed my brother and his friends to continue upstairs in my room. I gave up on the idea of sleep and bore witness to the big chaps I brought over from hometown Haydock taking the piss out of the cast of Coronation Street. Night played out, and I eventually ended up rescuing one of them lot from a naked moment in the hotel toilets and subsequent projectile vomiting back in my room. The cleaners must have loved me. Great image there of Ashcroft and Cy Jones. There's a big, that's the fans leaving there. Imagine the clear up that the band had to do after that. Nick McCabe said he got involved in the clear up, so that's amazing. And that's it. That's the story of Haigh Hall, 24th of May, 1998, Wigan. One of the biggest shoegaze / Britpop gigs of all time. Particularly, I mean, like Catching the Butterfly, Come On, like the songs they perform there. They got Neon Wilderness going into Weeping Willow. There's still a lot of great ambient shoegaze played at that gig, like Life's an Ocean as well. Nick McCabe just comes into his own. Yeah, Haigh Hall, what a gig. Some great images there. Fantastic. And then I've got the DVD here somewhere. Some more pictures here. Not all of them from Haigh Hall, obviously. These are like various gigs. It's such a great box set, it really is, and some of the B-sides and unreleased material is really worth getting. Oh, this is some big poster. Big poster of the band there. That's the DVD where you get the whole gig. Yeah, live at Haigh Hall. You also get a Jules Holland gig as well. Yeah, Come On in the encore. Wow. Nick McCabe just completely owns it. Absolutely incredible performance. I urge you to watch Come On YouTube. It's absolutely mad. And there we go, guys.